Number 6, Hector Castro. As we all know, anyone looking to participate in most sports as a professional needs to be in tip-top shape for most of their career. As sports science came to play in the last few decades, this demand for peak physical fitness has become even more important. That is why players such as Hector Castro were considered to be even more special today. You see, although Hector had a burning passion for the game of football, his dreams of becoming a professional footballer would take a massive blow when he lost his right arm electric saw accident when he was only 13 years old. As you can imagine, many doctors and specialists told him he should forget about ever becoming a professional athlete, let alone a footballer. Luckily for us, Castro must have had a stubborn streak because he wasn't having any of that. He was so determined that he would eventually achieve his dreams on the grandest stage of them all. During his almost 10-year career for Nacional in his native Uruguay between 1923 to 1932, El Manco, as he would be dubbed back then, took his native Uruguay by storm. Turns out that the defenders of the time were just unable to figure out how to mark Castro because his missing arm helped him move in a rather unorthodox manner. Well, this style of play would earn him a call-up for La Tricolor during the first ever World Cup competition back in 1930. This would be great for the Uruguayan national team because he would be the one to score the first goal for Uruguay in the competition. A free game later, he would be the one to score the winner in the World Cup final. A truly unbelievable story for an extraordinary player. Aptly said by the man who barely saw the loss of his right arm as a handicap, Castro once said that the only time he's handicapped was when he had to applaud. Suffice it to say, he didn't need a helping hand when it was time to play the beautiful game. Number 5, Adebayo Akinfenwa. Right. Let's take a step away from the one-armed football player to someone with enough biceps to spare his teammates and the other team when we think about it. Sure, he didn't win a World Cup for his country, but Adebayo Akinfenwa was one heck of a unit for several teams, including Wycombe Wanderers, Millwall, and Leyton Orient, among other teams. The powerhouse striker was always on point for whoever he turned out for, and one of the reasons he was able to be so reliable up front was because of his bulging muscles. Looking at him, you can see that he did weigh every bit of that 120-kilogram body in that 6'1" tall body. Imagine nudging such a unit off the ball. It's almost impossible to fathom. Amazingly, he was able to remain so strong because it is believed that he was able to bench 120 kilograms as a warm-up set during his heyday. With such muscles, you can see why defenders struggled to handle the English striker. In fact, there was that time that he apparently sent 2 center backs to the emergency room just by standing still. No wonder he was referred to as the Beast. He was considered to be so powerful that FIFA even gave him a strength rating of 97. The only player that we can think of with similar stats is probably Adriano, and we all saw the damage he did during his pump. Well, with such skills and attributes, Akinfenwa was able to carve out a career for himself in the lower leagues. Sure, some of the bigger boys tried to recruit him, but he seemed happy playing for the likes of Swansea City and Northampton Town, among others. Ever the showman, the lower leagues certainly enjoyed the time they got with this amazingly powerful player. Number 4, Jorge Campos. Next up, let's take a look at Jorge Campos. Taking a step away from the big and powerful to the diminutive genius, we are compelled to take a look at this Mexican player because he truly is something special. Why? Well, tell me if you've ever heard of another goalkeeper that stood at a height of 1.7 meters. For those that aren't used to the metric system, this means that he was only about 5'7" tall. That is about as tall as Lionel Messi. How did he end up in goal? As if that isn't interesting enough, we can only say that maybe Campos decided that he must be noticed by the opposition. This is because it is believed that he designed those colorful goalkeeper kits that he wore when he represented his club teams of UNAM and LA Galaxy, as well as the Mexican national team. As if that wasn't impressive enough, Castro was also known to sub himself in as a striker. I bet you could never see that in the modern game today. Truly spectacular stuff, as well as he would go on to mark out a career where he would score 35 goals during his club career. Truth be told, maybe Campos didn't know his real position. Heck, there was that time that he dribbled past 3 players before realizing that he should be doing that because he was playing in goal. Whatever the case may be, the world would fall in love with the Mexican goalkeeper when he showed his amazing attributes during the 1994 World Cup. Imagine being there to see this man's speed, athleticism, and leaping ability. Plus, who could forget those colorful kits? Some tried to put him off by telling him it was too bright, but the keeper only showed up with even brighter kits. You cannot stop a shine shining, especially as his athleticism and speed would put the opposition off. Maybe he came off as a shooting star, especially as he was known to do 60-yard dashes and somersaults before making devastating one-on-one saves to keep the opposition out of goal. In the end, Campos would retire to become a goalkeeping coach and a football pundit. In the end, he bowed out of the game as one of the most unique Mexican footballing stars in history. Number 3. René Higuita. From one odd goalkeeper that can't stay in goal to another, we head over to the South American country of Colombia so that we can acknowledge René Higuita as one of the strangest footballers out there today. Sure, he wasn't as short as Campos, nor did he wear goalkeeping kits that were as bright and as colorful as his Mexican counterpart, but boy, was he one strange fellow. Where do we start, really? Well, just like Campos, he didn't care for the rules of the penalty box as a keeper. If he had the ball, he's going to have to dribble you. How do you handle that as a coach? It must have been enough to pull one's hair out, something that Higuita wasn't ever really worried about because he always had that amazing head of hair to help him stand out on the pitch. The use of this head of hair to mark him out would be important, especially when he rushed upfield to take a free kick. That's right, Higuita was nutty enough to fancy a free kick or two during his career. He would prove to be so good at them that he would score 7 of them during his career. Some of you guys haven't figured out how to score free kicks on FIFA. Shame too, because that wasn't the only thing that was special about René Higuita. In fact, far from it, because those that may have been alive at the time would tell you how amazing it may have been to witness the scorpion kick for themselves. Back in 1995, England took on Colombia in Wembley as a warm-up friendly for the Euro 1996 competition. However, there was nothing in existence that could prepare the England national team for what René Higuita had in store for them. Jamie Redknapp, far from his days moaning about Paul Pogba or Dele Alli, and the England team were on the attack. Looking to make an impact, Redknapp sent in a cross. Maybe Shearer or Sheringham could make some sort of contact so that they could take charge of the game. Instead, Redknapp would be surprised to see that the ball was actually heading towards goal. Weird, but who knows? We've seen balls like this go in. Well, he and the rest of the world as a whole would be shocked to find that Higuita jumped forward so that he could flick his feet at the ball like a scorpion striking its prey. Truly amazing stuff, right? As you can imagine, Wembley went nuts. In one of the most WTF moments in football at that point in time, this was far from the normal convention in association football, so much so that we haven't seen anyone come close to this today. Sure, Ederson and Allison may take on a man or two if they had to, but this was truly something special. We'd love to say that Higuita went on to greater things following this, and in a way he did, but we guess that is why he is one of the strangest footballers out there today. Unfortunately, Higuita would get caught up in the criminal network spun by the likes of Pablo Escobar in his native Colombia. Even before this famous match, he would get wrapped up in a kidnapping case that would see him serve time in the big house for 7 months. He would even lose his chance to take part in the 1994 World Cup due to this mess. Although there was that time in the 1990 World Cup when he tried to dribble the legendary Roger Milla, only to be outwitted by the veteran Cameroon striker who would go on to score from this. Despite these faux pas, he will still go on to carve out a decent career as an unorthodox goalkeeper in his native Colombia with short stints in Mexico and Spain. Sure, it would even go on to have 43 goals to his name by the end of this career. What a keeper. What a moment. Number 2, Paul Gascoigne. Another player that was making his name around the same time as our previous entry on this list of odd footballers is Paul Gascoigne of England lore. Considered to be one of the most talented players, if not the most talented players to come out of the British Isles, Gascoigne was truly one of a kind, with the dribbling ability and the scoring prowess to rival that of any modern dribbler to play the game. Yes, I said it. As well as the scoring prowess to keep keepers on their toes anytime he graced the pitch, Gascoigne was truly a force in British football. We talking about a man that supposedly averaged 6.4 carries every 90 minutes. The only problem was that he had to be in the mood to play. You see, as great as he was on the pitch, he was just as zany, if not more, when he was off it. His antics are legendary till this day, and that says a lot when we consider the fact that he was up to no good long before the internet era. Imagine if Twitter was a thing back then. You could wake up to find out that Gascoigne has pretty much done anything that defied conventional imagination. For example, he apparently had a thing for prank calls. Chief would dunk on Arsenal by day and send random taxis to random people's homes for giggles. Then there was the time that he was seen with a baby ostrich in his hands while he was in his hometown in Newcastle. They should have warned us about him because there was also that time that he stole Rod Stewart's fishing gear just because they were in the same hotel. As if that wasn't bad enough, his antics were exclusive to off-the-pitch activities. Do you guys remember the time he was playing for Rangers? Remember the time he took the referee's car as a joke? The referee didn't find that as funny as the others in the stadium, so he promptly gave him a booking. He would earn many of those yellow cards as he would go on to pull on his opponent's shorts during set pieces. That's the kind of man that we're dealing with, folks. Even his teammates weren't safe. Twitter would have certainly loved this legend, especially after that infamous dentist chair celebration during Euro '96. That said, he wore his heart on his sleeve. Every time he played for England, he gave his all and then some. Even when he found out that he wouldn't be playing in the 1990 World Cup final, after getting booked in the semi-final game against Germany, he played on, even though this realization brought him to tears in the middle of the game. In time, Gascoigne would bow out of the game, but surely we would never forget the days when we got to watch this crazy genius with the ball at his feet. Number 1. Mario Balotelli. Finally, we finish off with a player who'd ask why always him, but we must acknowledge the strangeness that is Mario Balotelli. Ever the promising player back in the 2000s, Mario Balotelli's promise for success was only outshone for his propensity to get up to no good. Imagine being tipped for success in historically iconic clubs such as Inter Milan or the recently cash-rich at the time Man City, only to bow out of the game due to a surly reputation and a tendency to get into trouble all the time. Mario, you just had to see him in his day. Never has there been a colder man on the penalty spot. Cole Palmer and Bruno Fernandes wish they could boast of his 13-13 penalties for AC Milan alone. That's right, he turned out for I Rossoneri, even though they were long past their best at that point. However, he never maintained this level of calm off the pitch. I mean, who sets their own bathroom on fire? Then there was the time he threw darts at youth players for fun. Thank God nobody got hurt in this stupidity. As if that isn't bad enough, he was also known to get into it with his own teammates. There was even that time he got into it with Mancini when the pair were at Man City. Balotelli sure was a handful. That said, just like Gascoigne, he proved to be a misunderstood young man, at least to some extent. With a heart of gold, he often spoke against racism, especially as he was a frequent victim of vile prejudice. He also spoke against bullying, so much so that once confronted a kid's bully for him. Strange and misunderstood, Balotelli may just be the strangest of them all.